Daniel took his last sip of soda and put the empty can down. The party with his friends was over. He had to leave. He was moving to the city soon, and his mom was coming to visit him. He didn't want to miss her. One of his friends, Derek, looked at him.
It's really late, Daniel. Are you sure you want to go?
I'll be fine, Daniel said with a smile. But deep down, he felt uneasy. Max, his loyal dog, was waiting by the door. Daniel opened the door and stepped outside into the cold night. The trees around his house were tall and dark, the woods stretching out in front of him. Max walked next to him, but something was off about the night. The air felt thick, and there was an eerie silence. No crickets, no owls, just stillness. Max suddenly growled. Daniel stopped walking. Daniel looked around but couldn't see anything. "What's wrong, boy?" he asked, reaching down to pet him. Max growled louder, staring into the dark. Daniel's heart raced. He felt like something was out there, but he didn't know what. Then he heard a voice.
Daniel? Is that you? It's so cold out here.
It sounded just like his mom. Daniel's breath stopped. He knew she was far away, not in the woods. But the voice, it was so familiar. Max barked sharply. He was scared. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. This wasn't right. His mom couldn't be out here. He thought back to the stories his grandmother used to tell him. About skinwalkers, creatures that could look like people you know, to trick you. Max was still growling, looking at the shadows in the woods. Daniel's hand shook as he took a step back. He felt cold, even though he wasn't near the trees.
Daniel, come closer. It's so cold.
The voice called again, this time sounding a little different. It didn't sound quite like his mom anymore. There was something wrong with it. Max barked louder, pulling at his leash. He didn't want to move closer to the voice. Daniel's feet felt like they were glued to the ground, but he knew he had to get away. Suddenly he saw a shape in the distance. It looked like a woman, walking slowly between the trees. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't see her face clearly, but he could tell she was moving toward him.
Mom!
Daniel called again, though he already knew this wasn't his mother. The figure stepped into the dim light, and Daniel's blood ran cold. It looked like his mom, but her eyes were glowing with an eerie, pale light. Her face was twisted into a strange smile that wasn't right. Daniel's stomach turned. Max started barking wildly. He pulled harder on the leash, trying to drag Daniel away from the figure. Daniel's mind raced. This was no longer his mom. This was a skinwalker.
Daniel, come closer. I'm your mom.
The voice changed again, becoming deeper, darker, and filled with hatred. Daniel turned and ran without thinking. Max barked loudly, chasing after him. Behind them, the skinwalker shrieked, its voice full of anger.
Daniel, come closer. I'm your mom.
The sound of its footsteps grew louder, faster. Daniel ran harder, pushing himself to go faster. He could hear the skinwalker's voice again. It sounded like it was right behind him, but he didn't dare look back. Max was ahead of him, pulling him forward. Daniel saw the cabin in front of him. He was almost there. Daniel reached the door and fumbled for the key. His hands were shaking. He finally opened it and rushed inside. He slammed the door shut behind him and locked it quickly. Max ran to the corner, still barking. Daniel stepped over to the window, looking outside. There was nothing, just the trees, the dark shadows, and the stillness. But he knew it wasn't over. The skinwalker was out there somewhere. He could feel it. Suddenly, he heard the voice again. This time, it was louder.
Daniel, let me in. I just want to see you.
The voice sounded so much like his mom, but now it was twisted. Daniel's fear grew. This wasn't his mom. This wasn't anything like his mom. He ran to the kitchen, grabbed a jar of salt his grandmother had given him. He quickly spilled it around the door, just like his grandmother had taught him. She always said salt could protect against evil spirits, especially skinwalkers. Max kept barking, running back and forth between the door and the window. Then, with a loud crash, something hit the door. The entire cabin shook. Daniel froze. The skinwalker was trying to get in. He quickly ran to the windows, slamming them shut and locking them. The air in the cabin felt colder.
Daniel, I'm your mom. Let me in.
The voice twisted again, this time so deep and growling that Daniel almost couldn't understand it. The door cracked open, and the skinwalker screeched. Daniel quickly threw salt at it, his hands shaking. The skinwalker hissed and its body flickered like a shadow. The figure pulled back, and for a moment Daniel thought it was gone. But then, with a final scream, the skinwalker vanished into the woods. The door slammed shut, and the air was still again. But Daniel didn't feel safe. Max lay down on the floor next to him, his body tense. Daniel knew this wasn't over. The skinwalker would come back. They always did. Do you believe in creatures like this, or is it just a terrifying story? Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Have you ever experienced anything like this? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more terrifying stories.